Also weighing in on the death of former Governor Kathleen Blanco is political analyst Clancy DuBos. He joins me now by phone. Clancy, I think that there's, obviously we knew that Kathleen was battling this long cancer battle, but still a shock, I think, tonight to learn that she did pass. What was your general reaction when you heard the news today?
Well, I knew it was coming, but like everybody else, it still saddens me. This was a lady who had tremendous grace under fire, a tremendous political courage, and a great sense of humor as well. She always knew how to conduct herself, especially when times were tough.
And what do you think some of the highlights were from her time as governor? I know that she only served one term, but I think that there were a lot of highlights, especially as you talked about earlier, about education.
Yes, she got her start in life as an educator, and her husband was an educator. And she showed a tremendous commitment to improving education in Louisiana, not only as governor, but before that, when she started out as a state representative.
And Clancy, I just want to ask you this one last question. Her family released a statement today saying that they feared and that she feared that she would only be remembered for her response to Hurricane Katrina and Rita. But you think that she will be certainly remembered for much more than that, and history will be kind to her. Is that sort of your feeling?
Absolutely. I think history will be very kind to Kathleen Blanco. While she was judged very harshly for her immediate response in the immediate aftermath of Katrina, once everybody, including the governor and the legislature, got some traction, she was the one who pushed through the reforms in education, but also the reforms in the levee boards, combining local levee boards into 2 regional flood control authorities, and for combining the city of New Orleans' 7 assessors' offices into 1.
Clancy DuBos reacting tonight to the death of former Governor Kathleen Blanco. Clancy, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
And many people are remembering the late governor on Twitter as well. Politicians, reporters, business people, and even the saints have offered condolences and shared memories. Blanco will be honored with several events in Baton Rouge. Thursday, there will be an interfaith service at St. Joseph's Cathedral beginning at 10. After, she will be brought to the Capitol, where she will lie in state in the rotunda. Friday, there will be a public visitation in Lafayette, and funeral mass services will be on Sunday. More details on that will be released tomorrow. We, of course, will continue to cover this and these events right here on WWL.